So for direct variation, what we're doing is we are looking at y equals kx. And with y equals kx, the constant is k. And if you think about it, k is kind of in that position where that m was for slope. So y equals mx plus b. And when you're talking direct variation, notice that there is no b, and there is no b on the outside because the y-intercept is at 0. So if x is automatically always at 0 for the y-intercept, then and the y-intercept is at 0, then that's why it gets eliminated. Because do we need to write plus 0? No. But does it mean the same thing? Yes. So understand that really it's looking at the same kind of thing. So your k is your constant. It's how much is it increasing by the x as it's increasing by the y. Then you look over here, and if you get asked, okay, if it is in direct variation and you can identify the equation, now figure out what is the constant. And to figure out the constant, all you have to do is do inverse operation. Since we need to figure out k, you have to isolate k. How do we do that? You divide by x. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Divide by x. So all I did was rewrite it. So if they're looking for you to identify the constant, k, then you would use this formula. And remember, you are going to be doing y over x. So in a chart, don't forget to put your y's on top as your numerator and your x's on the bottom as your denominator. If you have direct variation, then the constant should always be the same. And then obviously at the origin 0, 0, 0 divided by 0 is going to be 0. All right, so let's look at a couple things. Here's it with an equation. We know that has to be the constant. The key thing is it must go through the origin. And the origin is where your axes, so your y-axis and your x-axis meet. So the origin is right here. It must go through that point. And that point is known as 0, 0. So in order to be direct variation, it must go through there. So if I were to draw a basic coordinate plane, all right, I'm going to go ahead and make my y-axis green just so it stands out, but this is the coordinate plane. And my x-axis, I'm going to do orange. Okay, so this is my x, this is my y. The origin, again, is where they both meet. It's 0 on the vertical number line, and it's 0 on the horizontal line. If I were to draw a line like this, is it in direct variation? Yes, it went through the origin. If I were to draw a line like this, yes, it went through the origin. If I were to draw a line like this, yes, it went through the origin. You can draw tons and tons of lines. All of these are in direct variation. Why? They go directly through 0, 0. Doesn't matter if one is steeper than the other. It's the fact, do they go through 0, 0, and is it a linear line? All right. Now, if I were to draw another coordinate plane, but this time I drew a line graph like that, did he go through the origin? No, then he is not in direct variation. Notice his y-intercept is right here. His x-intercept is right there. So this is not direct variation. So looking at a graph, all you have to say is it a linear line, which is a straight line? Does it go through the origin? If it does, then it's direct variation. If it does not, and it has, an x-intercept or a y-intercept. So that would be a number other than 0, and your x-intercept would be a number, comma, and then that won't be the case. So in other words, if you have a b at the end for y equals mx plus b, and you have a number here other than 0, then it's not indirect variation. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so now let's look at if you guys were to get some equations. So let's just check out some problems with identifying equations of direct variation. So equations of direct variation. If I were to give you okay, so we're going to identify. If I were to give you y equals 5x plus 8. Remember, direct variation has to be y equals kx. Or, again, it could be y equals kx plus 0. Or y equals kx minus 0. Because technically, you just wouldn't have to write those. Those three mean the same thing. So right now, if I were to look at this, I see 5 right here. Now I go look at the y-intercept. I should see nothing, a 0 or a 0. I don't. I see an 8. That means that this line hits the y-intercept at 0, 8. This is not direct variation because it must go at 0, not at 8. So not direct variation. All right, what if I give you this? Y equals 3.6x. Okay, I know the equation has to be y equals kx or plus 0 or minus 0. There's no number here. That's a good thing. And I only see the k. If you want to do colors, you can think about it. Here's your input for your ordered pair and your output. It looks identical. That means this is, yes, direct variation. If you were asked to graph this, all you would do is your input-output table and use like 2, 0, -2. And what should you be expecting? That it goes through the origin. Because if it's direct variation, it must go through the point 0, 0. It must have that ordered pair in the t-table. Okay, as your input and output, you must have an ordered pair of 0, 0. All right, then let's just say we had an equation like this. Y equals 2x. Well, notice that we have a number next to the y. You have to use inverse operation to get y by itself. You can never leave a number next to y. So how would I move that 8? Well, to move that 8, since it's multiplied by 8, divide by 8. So you're just doing inverse operation. So now this is y equals 2/8x, which simplifies to y equals 1/4 x. Keep in mind, this can be written like that. It can also be written like that. It can also be written like that. Okay. Is this in direct variation? Yes. There's no y-intercept out here. It's at 0. All you see is your y value, your k value, your constant, and your x value. So if I now said, is this in direct variation, it would be yes. And then what is your constant? K equals 1/4. If you were given a table and you were asked, is it in direct variation? And I gave you, I do not mind if you do this to kind of shorten it. So if I had number of boxes would be X, and the rolls of tape needed, which would be my Y, and in the number of boxes, it said 2, 3, 4. And for the rolls of tape needed, it had 1, 2, 5. Well, for the table, they want you to find what K is. So they need to say, find K, and then decide, is it in direct variation? Well, remember, in order to find K, we had to do the inverse operation, so it's going to be the formula Y over X. Common Air, students will do 2 divided by 1. No, it's the reverse. So it helps if you write the equation below here so you start to memorize it. All right, that means 1 over 2, 2 over 3, 5 over 4. All right, this is already relative prime. Are they equal to each other? Are they constant? The same number? No. So no, not direct variation. If it was in direct variation, you would have seen 1/2, 1/2, 1/2. Let me show you an example that is in direct variation. So this time, if I were to give you the problems, cans of food would represent X, and your Y would be dinners made. 2, 4, 6, and 4, 8, 12. All right, remember to find and identify a K, it's Y over X, so Y over X. Then that means 4 over 2, 8 over 4, 12 over 6. That simplifies to 2, 2, 2. Did I get the same number each time? Yes. So yes, direct variation, and your K is equal to 2. If I were to ask you then what is the equation, you know your K is 2. That means that it has to be Y equals 2X. That's the equation, because all you do is plug in the K position. This is your constant. Yes, it's in direct variation. So once you just through the origin, yes, it goes through the origin at 0, 0. So you know, now I just need to see, do I have a constant? So all you do is use, you can either do the t-table vertical, or if you like looking at it horizontal, you do your ordered pairs. So I see one ordered pair is 0, 0. What is the ordered pair here? 2, 1. So when X is 2, Y is 1. And then what do I see here? When X is -2, this is -1. Okay, so all you do is you take your ordered pairs, understanding that the ordered pairs are what's in that table. When they gave you the table here, those are ordered pairs. Okay, now you're back to just looking at it as a table. So remember, it's Y divided by X, 0 divided by 0. That's okay to get that as a constant because we know it went through the origin. So now we're just going to look at whatever pairs they give you. If they give you more than 2, you need to do all of them. So then maybe they gave you a third one because you need 3 to identify a pattern. So, all right, it's Y over X. So that's 1/2, and then -1 divided by -2. Remember, a negative divided by a negative becomes a positive. So is 1/2 equal to 1/2? Yes. So now we know this is direct variation, and your K is 1/2. So what is the equation for this now that we have the K? It's Y equals, what is your K? 1/2 X. So you should be getting equations.